matter whether you're standing, like you're one of the biggest billionaires in the world or whatever. At the end of the day, people still want to feel loved and safe, right? At the end of the day, it boils down to a human being underneath. Sometimes there's trauma that caused the reason for them to act really cocky. It's like a defense. Gold diggers, at the end of the day, they will show their true colors at some point in time. At the end of the day, nobody can sustain that forever.
Dating apps, ghosting, situationships, not on her watch. Today I'm sitting down with the high net worth, aka a millionaire matchmaker, the woman behind some of the most powerful love connections in the world, Cassindy Chao. From wild billionaire requests to real love stories with a price tag, we're getting the raw truth. Are high net worth singles really as arrogant as they look on TV? Plus her exclusive tips on how you can be magnetic on your own dates, no millions required. If you guys remember the 2000s show Millionaire Matchmaker, that is literally what I was thinking when I was introduced to Cassindy. And as somebody who is trying to find love herself, aka me, I didn't know what I was in for. Today's episode is actually one of the most fascinating, interesting interviews I've done in a while. So grab your matchas and popcorn and make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed today's video. And what allows me to continue making these videos and fascinating interviews is your support by hitting the subscribe button, commenting down what you guys have thought about today's show. So what is the love world like in the ultra high net worth world? Let's find out. First of all, could you please introduce yourself, who you are, for the audience?
I'm Cassindy Chao. I'm a matchmaker, and I'm a former Goldman Sachs banker, but I love people so much more. I hate the numbers. I love being great people. I love bringing great people together.
What were you doing before becoming a matchmaker? I know you said you worked at Goldman Sachs in the financial department.
So I was working in finance, slaving away, doing, being a good, hardworking person, climbing up the corporate ladder. But I just hated the numbers, and I love people so much more. I also was raising a family later on. So, I didn't think matchmaking could be a career, but here we are.
Well, was there like a click between like finance into matchmaking, or was there something else you wanted to go to?
Not at all. So it's interesting because when I was in college, I practically flunked out one semester because all I was doing was matchmaking people. And it was like our blind date, semi-formal party. And I had like 100 couples, and it was so much fun. But I didn't think it could be a career. So I didn't think about it. So like years later, I'm working away. I'm in finance and tech, and just, it's long hours, right? And I remember seeing some article about a matchmaker. I'm like, wow. So I contacted her, and she goes, oh yeah, I actually trained with one of the very best. And so I said, oh, well, who'd you train with? Right. And then I found out, and I ended up training with 17 other matchmakers around the world, and we all flew in to get trained. And that's kind of how it kind of started.
Oh, wow. So you actually have to get trained for this. I didn't know that.
Oh, yes. There's a lot of matchmakers, but there's very few that are formally trained. And we also have conferences. We also have what I call is like a professional guild. There's a Matchmakers Alliance. Like there's actually a lot of structure underneath because, there are many matchmakers, and we all have to do a lot of collaboration, and we also have ethics, right? There's certainly, not everybody follows it, but we try to be pretty straightforward.
Wow.
Who knew, right? Who knew?
That's crazy. It's wow. So one of the questions I had was there's a lot of normal matchmakers and there's the high net worth matchmaking, which is what you do. Why did you pick that criteria?
Well, bottom line, it's my time, right? If you think about it, I only have so much bandwidth, right? And, I have a family to raise. I have expenses as well, but I really want to make sure that, that I give it the right attention, right? I limit the number of people that I take on, and I do a really good job. Think of it as like an executive recruiter, right? I'm on the hunt to find special people, right? There's people who want to save money. There are so many other matchmakers. There's dating apps, right? Dating apps are really inexpensive. There's other ways to find love as well. I'm not knocking one over the other. But if somebody wants me to spend the time to really do the searching, and I build up my database, and not just the searching, but also setting up the dates in a way that really ensures success, that takes time. And so that's why it does cost money.
Got it. So before we get into the nitty gritty of what you do, I had to ask you, what do you think about the modern dating and dating apps, Hinge, Bumble, Tinder?
Coffee meets bagel.
Yeah.
It's hard. Like nobody today says to me, oh my gosh, Cassindy, I can't wait to get on the dating apps. Like nobody says that. right? And I think it's really hard, especially with AI as well now, because there's so many prompts that people can use. So you almost like you don't really know who you're really talking to,
Mm.
right? And I think that's why matchmaking has been really good, is because we actually meet the people, we actually screen the people, I actually talk to them, right? Whereas with the dating apps, there's a lot of fraud, right? There are a lot
Mm.
of people on there who are there for nefarious reasons, which is really unfortunate because then it really ruins the mood, right? Even though there might be a great person that is on the apps, but if you've just been kind of treated badly by somebody or gaslit, then your feeling is like, oh, is this person nice? Not, you're just automatically
Mm.
kind of sunburned, right? You're very sensitive because it feels tough, right? So I do think some are better. I think Coffee Meets Bagel is nice because it's much more values oriented, right?
Mm.
But there's a lot that are really unpleasant. It's hard. It is really, really hard in today's world. And there's a lack of civility. People aren't as polite as they would in real life or in person. Like
Mm.
if I have two people in my network that are going on a date, and let's just say one of them is really rude or whatever, I will either block that person from my database or I'll go yell at them, right? On online dating, that's never going to happen. People have no
Yeah.
consequences if they act badly. But in real world with real people, there are consequences. So that's where I kind of keep it safe.
Did you ever have to tell one of your clients that they're the problem, like yell at them?
Sound like you're asking for a slave.
Well, I can't yell at my clients because that would hurt their feelings, right? And as a parent of kids too, and I've learned this, is that how you say it is really important too. Because
Mm.
if you're just mad and you're like, you're just a bad client, I'm going to tell you that you behave badly. It's just me letting out my anger at the client or at the person. And that's not going to solve the problem because they're not going to listen, right?
Mm.
I still have to realize that I'm here to make positive change and to be helpful, right? So what we call is the compliment sandwich. They always put something positive, and
Mm.
then you give the comment, and then you give a compliment again. Like, oh my gosh, Frank, you were so friendly, so outgoing on the date. That was great. Right. And then you give the negative, like, well, but your hygiene, there were some smells that were, maybe noticeable, like maybe wear less cologne, whatever it is, right? And then you end up with like, oh my gosh, I loved how you're so personable, and gave your date a hug at the end of the date, right? So
Mm.
compliment sandwich, compliment in the middle, you give your comment. So otherwise, if their defenses are up, they're just not going to hear, right? What I might want to say is like, what is your problem? How could you show up on a date without brushing your teeth, right? You can't say that.
Oh,
You say, oh, right.
got it, got it. Have you ever watched that TV show from the 2000s, The Millionaire Matchmaker?
I have. I actually was at a conference where I was a speaker, and
Mm.
she was also a speaker too. So yeah,
Wow.
Patty Stager is a bold personality.
Wow. So do you think that in real life, I know that's kind of for a show, do you see a lot of these high net worth, especially men or even women, kind of like cocky or rude, like on the show?
Oh, all the time. All the time. But at the end of the day, right, I think a lot of cockiness and attitude actually hides insecurity, right?
Mm.
And I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're standing, like you're one of the biggest billionaires in the world or whatever. I call them big R's versus little R's, big rich, little R. At the end of the day, people still want to feel loved and safe, right? At the
Mm.
end of the day, it boils down to a human being underneath, right? And
Got it.
sometimes there's trauma that caused the reason for them to act really cocky. It's like a defense, right?
Mm.
Or this is what they think they need to do. Maybe when they were a kid, they were bullied on the playground, so they now need to compensate. Right? There's a lot of other stuff going on for sure.
I wanted to go into your success stories or maybe like your first ever client when you started doing this
Oh gosh.
or interesting stories you
My
have.
first clients were total disasters because I was not a good matchmaker. This is when I was in college, right? I did all those dates and like half of them bombed. They're like, oh my gosh. It's like, I didn't know how to do it, right? I was just like, oh, I think they should meet, and not really knowing. But over time, you learn, right? You learn.
Mhm.
One of my earliest success stories was so cute. I introduced them via postcard, and they got married and have kids. But
Oh.
it taught me that how you make the introduction makes a big difference too, right?
Mm.
People have to be kind of like intrigued, right? It's not just like, I'm going to match you up and that's that, right? But it's like,
Mm.
oh, I'm hoping you guys meet. I think that you guys, what I thought was really interesting is that you both like the same book, right? I thought that was kind of interesting, right? Or something like that. Maybe you guys can meet up for a coffee, like something really kind of light. Sometimes it's like a really light touch, but then you got to back away, right? What the biggest mistake people do is they try to check in, like, how did it go? How did it go? You just have to back away, right?
Interesting.
Very, very light touch. So that was my earliest clients. I have another client who was early on as well that I loved. She was a doctor. And what was interesting about her was that she spent all this time taking care of everybody but herself. She'd take her godmother out for dim sum. She'd do all these things for other people, but not for herself. And meanwhile, she's now neglecting her own love life. And so that's what I really loved was I helped her find somebody who really cared for her, right? And he had a similar story too. So they both, in the end, realized caring for others is great, but they should also care about themselves and their own love life and prioritize it. And they both found each other. And I'm really happy about that one. That one was so
Mm. Oh, wow.
I was so proud of myself on that one. Yeah, it was just really two really good people, you know.
Wow, wow. And did it take you like couple matches for that to happen, or was it like the first spark?
Oh, it took a lot. Like, you know, I mean,
Oh.
and some clients I can do it faster, some of them slower. It depends, right? It depends on
Mm,
the attitude. This one with her, it was a bit of a journey because I think she was still figuring out what she wanted.
mm,
So that one was maybe probably about a dozen dates.
okay. What is the biggest difference between high network clients look for in love versus I don't want to say this, but like the average person?
You know, there's similarities and there's things that are not similarities, right?
Mm,
And the similarities would be, yeah, at the end of the day, people still want to be loved and accepted for who they are, not for the
mm,
checkbox that they stand on, right? I think at the end of the day, people really want to be seen. We all want to be seen and
mm,
accepted. We don't want to be judged. Nobody likes being judged, right?
mm,
I think the differences are with the ultra high net worth, though, is they get concerned, right? A lot of them are very concerned. Are they being loved for their money? Are they being loved for their status? Right. And some people are fine with that because they like that adoration. They like that feeling of power and control. Right. Some of them like that. And I
mm,
don't judge. Right. I don't judge. It's not my role to judge people on what they want. But I do try to talk to them about, like, well, are you looking for longevity? Right. Are you looking
mm,
for somebody who has your back? Because while people can be very successful, it's not always, it's not a 24/7 type of thing. And also, gold diggers at the end of the day, they will show their true colors at some point in time,
mm,
right? So at the end of the day, nobody can sustain that forever. It's just,
mhm.
you know, and I've seen the cost of broken marriages. It's very high.
I know you just talked about a little bit of your secret sauce in like matching personalities. Is there something a little more that you do to
Yeah.
really fit the right person?
I'll delve into one area. So it's not just the person that you match with, it's also how they meet.
Mm,
So that first date is really fragile. How you define a first date is so important. Think about it this way.
wow.
Okay, like, let's be really crass. Somebody hops into bed on the first date, that's fine. But you can't unhop out of bed later on, right? So
Hmm.
how you define the dynamics of that first date are so important, right? Because you can't really undo it later on. So
Mm,
that's why for a lot of women, I'll say to them, like, look, if you're always being people pleasing, oh yeah, whatever you want, oh sure, you can't undo it later on because the guy is going to go, what happened? Right? So
wow.
how you do that first date is really critical. And
Mm,
as a matchmaker, I can usually step in and get that set up properly. For example, people will sometimes say, "Oh, well, we'll meet halfway, or you come here, I come there." Right? You know, I'm in Upper West Side, you're in the Village, you're in so whatever it is. Right? So as a matchmaker, I'll just say to the both people, like, "You guys are going to meet halfway. Here's a nice location. You guys both like matcha tea, matcha lattes. This is where we're going to meet." Or you both like this French pastry. We're gonna meet. You're gonna meet there. So that way there's no, like, I've stepped in to kind of set it up. So that way people don't say, oh, well, that person didn't come over. That person made me do this, right? There's none of that. I take the blame for that. So at least we remove that, right? So people are kind of meeting in on an even footing. A lot of times people will sit there, Google each other and check all this stuff out. I go, let's just not do that. Okay. Because it sets up too many preconceived notions, right? But instead, I'll bring it down to the human level. Like, for example, I might say, hey, I'm going to introduce you both. What I love about you both is you both really, really, really love maybe a certain food or this.
mm,
And I might say, can you share a picture of, like, of a favorite childhood food that you like, right? Or, you know, or it's been raining a lot. What does water mean to you? Take a picture and share it in the group chat, right? Or something like
mm,
that. It becomes very, like, you're not talking about your status. You're not talking about this. You're just talking about who you are as a person. right? That kind of love, that kind of acceptance, that kind of is much more fun, a little different. So I like to do that, for example, right? And I've done that, and that makes people meet where they really see each other versus just like checkbox, checkbox, checkbox.
Wow. You're so different than other matchmakers that I've talked to because you really dive deep into psychology and the personality and their childhood. This is amazing.
Well, I'm so like I'm living a good life. I'm also like obviously not young, right? Even though I'm young at heart. I've also raised three kids to adulthood, right? And I've also, so I kind of have an idea what I'm looking for, right? I'm not looking for just setting up a bunch of like dates. What I'm really looking for is a partnership, a relationship, things that happen, right? Because so much happens in our lives. Like, our parents get older, our parents pass away, we get illness, whatever. You want somebody who's got your back, who's there with you for the long term, right?
Oh,
Same
yeah.
both ways, right? And so that's what I'm looking for in relationships. I'm not looking for just something really, really fly by night, right? So I think about that a lot when I'm doing my matches. Right. And I think that's probably why I end up having to charge more because whoever I take on as a client, they're in my head. Like I think about them like, oh, I want, let me think about this. I really think a lot about my clients and I care about all my clients and I stay in touch with so many of them too, because I really want their success. I love baby pictures. I love, seeing travel pictures. I love weddings. Like that kind of stuff really just makes me happy. Like that is why I do what I do.
Wow. Have you been to your client's wedding?
Yeah.
Ah.
I have. Not all. I mean, some of them just like to pretend that they never met through a matchmaker, and that's totally fine, right? That's 100% fine. I'll usually come in as like a different role, like, oh, I'm like a family friend, right?
I like that.
Or like, or we're a business colleague, right? And so there's enough plausible deniability because again, right, I'm also an investor, right? I'm also a speaker, right? So I can kind of come in as different roles. It's not as a matchmaker, right? So I keep it's like I can put on different hats. When I go to a wedding, I can just go in and just enjoy and just watch all the pictures and the food and the appetizers and watching the couple go up. It's so cute.
What is like successful match to you? Is it like 10 dates in, or is it a relationship? Is it marriage, or is it defined by each?
So it depends, right? So like older, like second marriage, like second time around, it's not so much marriage, right? Sometimes, especially for high net worth, sometimes it's like a long-term relationship, a partnership. People don't necessarily get married. It's just different, right? Sometimes success can be even as simple as a confidence boost. Like I have a client who came in from Asia, had been treated very poorly by their ex, had been cheated on, right? And so I said, maybe you might need a dating buffet. So I had that person come out here and I set up 7 dates. Really good men, like good quality men. Like one's like a constitutional law professor, like a good quality, educated, smart. Another one's like a businessman, good, successful people, right? Another one's an architect from Harvard. And the joy she had, she goes, something on my 4th date with this one guy, she goes, I learned what it felt like to be cared for.
Oh.
They were at a restaurant, the light was kind of hitting her face, and he's like, oh, let's pull the shades down, let's ask them to move the shades down so you don't feel this up. Like he's just really caring, right? And she had fun, number one, because she hadn't been dating for a long time. So she had a ton of fun. And she had such good success because of the 7 men that she had gone on first dates with, 5 of them had second dates and some of them had more. One guy even invited her to come out to Vegas. So she's like, no Vegas. But but the point is that it really gave her a lot of confidence and it felt really good. Now the reason why it's not led to like a match is because she also has obligations, family obligations right now that I think will clear up in about a year. But right now it's just not the best time to truly settle down. And that's fine. Barometer of success is that this person is so much happier, so much brighter, so much more confident. And it spreads into not just your love life, but also how you are as a person, how you recover from a divorce, right? Because, in Asia, there's a stigma for divorce, right? And so it's nice just to let that go.
Do you have any rules, like no female texting first, or no brunch or coffee dates? Because I've heard that from other matchmakers that they have certain rules in the first dates.
So, so rules are made to be broken, number one. But number two, it always has to be in context. Right? Each person is so different. But generally certain rules, I would say slow things down. If you go into a rapid texting pattern, you can't undo that. Right? Because it's the same thing. If you're like, oh my gosh, we're talking right away, then it might be like, well, then you slow down. Then like, oh, what? Well, then the other person will misinterpret right? And the relationship is so fresh, you have to be really careful there, right?
Wow.
I also think again, it depends on the person. Some of us are people pleasers, right? So we have to be careful about that, because if we're spending all this time being people pleasers, are we really being true to ourselves? And then later on, we get resentful and we can't sustain that, right? So
Mm,
therefore, sometimes slow things down a little bit, right? But again, it
yeah.
kind of depends on the person and the context. But I would say generally kind of take it steady.
Do you think that money changes the way people date? So high net worth versus, again, people who may be the average person. Does money
Money
change?
impacts a lot of things. Yeah,
Mm,
no, for sure. And I think there is a social contract. It's still very prevalent, and I don't necessarily believe in it. I do feel that it makes it hard, but for a lot of people, dating somebody who's ultra high net worth is very attractive, and they're
mm,
willing to push down their own needs and criteria
mm,
because there's a lot of money there. And that is just
mhm,
a social issue. Again, I don't judge on that, but what I think people don't realize, though, is that if one goes in that direction, there's a major loss of control and agency, and there's a trade off, right?
mhm.
And I think at the end of the day, for everybody, male or female, sometimes you want to have like your own thing too, right? You want to have your own thing because nobody can take that away,
Mm,
right? And that's kind of important too, because if one goes for the ultra high net worth guy or gal, then in a way, you inadvertently are going to be ceding control to the other person. And there's going
mm,
to be an imbalance. The person wants to do this and you have to do that, right? And not always, okay? But that becomes a little bit of the social contract. Where sometimes, like, depends on the personality. Like, I'm personally very independent. Like, I like to do my own thing. So I like to have my own nest, my own thing, right?
mhm.
And that's just me. But again, everybody has their own choice, their own thing. But one thing to be very careful about, especially for females, is that when we have kids, we're automatically going to be at a disadvantage, right? Because you now have kids, you're now, you have obligations, you have I think guys should feel the same way, but they don't always. But
Mhm.
now if the person were to behave badly, the other person, then you're kind of stuck. It's not an easy
Yeah.
situation to be in.
What are some unrealistic or some crazy requests that you might have gotten from your clients that they want in a date?
Oh, lots of them. Oh my gosh, where do I start? Um, I'll start with an easy one. Like one was I had this guy and he wanted women above 5'10", right? And, in this case, Asian females, there's not that many that are above 5'10". I mean, I was
Mhm.
scouring like volleyball players and basketball players and stuff like that. But there's not that many, right? There's not that
Mhm.
many that are just suddenly going to become available when you want it, how you want it, whatever, right? So that was a little tricky. That person is a billionaire,
Interesting.
quite known, but it was a hard search, right? I mean, that was like, if you look at the population, 5'10" is not a lot, and
Yeah.
highly educated, all this kind of stuff. It was like, oh. Another request I got was really goofy. Was I had a woman who said to me, the person has to be from the top 30 universities in the entire world.
Mm,
And that in itself is not hard for me in my database because I have a lot of very well educated professionals. But in this case, it was a female. She was over 55. For women over 55, there's not as large of a male dating pool automatically available.
mm.
Right? And so you want from the top 30 colleges, you want them in a certain age bracket. It just becomes really, really, really hard. So we can
So would in that case, do you like kind of throw them a curveball and does it work? Does it not?
Well, I usually am able to find somebody, right?
Oh.
It takes time, and sometimes I'll just tell them, like, it's going to take me a little time. Let's just say I like to give them a lot of choices, right? But sometimes we're just in a situation where I don't have a ton of choices, right? I'll tell them this: it's going to take a little time. We'll find you somebody, but it may not happen like immediately in week 3, right? It might
Mhm.
happen in month 2, right, or something like that, right? It's fine. Like, I've had some pretty tough cases. Um, but I usually end up finding somebody from to go on dates with because look, I'm a very good outreach person. I will outreach to a lot of people. I will dig in through so many different creative methods, and I usually will
Mm.
find somebody. It takes time,
Oh,
but I'll find
wow. I mean, you only need that one right person for them, so.
exactly. But having said that, they also have to nail it too. Like as a
Mhm.
matchmaker, like hiring a matchmacher, we get people to the front of the line, right? That is our job
Mm,
is to get you to the front of the line. But the client has an obligation too. They have to close.
mm.
Meaning, if they're just going to bomb the date, then there's not much I can do, right? If they're going to,
Wow.
and I tell them that, like, I don't want you to bomb the date. It takes me a lot of work to get you that person. right? So if you bomb the date, it's just it's not good job satisfaction for me. So I also have people who train them. I have a pickup artist.
Mm-hmm.
I have this pickup artist who trains my clients how to be really attractive on a date, how to really get to a date, right? What are things that really work, right?
Wow. Oh, could you share like one tip on like how to be like magnetic? What is something that most people like? Like smiling, laughing, something.
I think people are really used to the kind of the smile, like, right? But
Mm.
so if you kind of calm your engine and take a really deep breath, right? And you kind of let it go, you notice that the tension in our face drops
Mm.
because inadvertently, when we're meeting somebody, we hold tension in our bodies, right? And when somebody's calm and warm, right, it's so much more attractive. And we don't
Mm.
realize it's actually subliminal, right? It's not just, oh, oh, hi, how are you? It's like, oh my gosh, it's really nice to meet you. I had a really nice time, right?
Mm.
That calmness makes people feel very safe, right? For example, right? That is like a little tip, right?
Wow.
Watch your breathing and then just, I was going like this, go, you check your jaw because we hold so much tension in our
Mm.
jaws and our eyes. We realize we hold that. If we can let that go, it's actually very attractive.
Wow. A little related question. Is there one trait that is magnetic specifically towards high net individuals that you noticed?
Well, okay, I mean, compliments get you everywhere. Like, oh my gosh, you look great.
Oh.
Oh, hi. know? But I also think sometimes get into their personal space because I think a lot of people don't get into their personal space. So if you're able to, I would do that. So like lean in, like a little touch, like, oh, I had a great,
Mm.
right? Nothing like, but just like, but you'd be surprised how much physical contact can really make yourself a little bit more memorable. Like when you're shaking hands or whatever, just a little bit of a touch, a bump, right? These things all, it kind of goes into their head in different ways, right? Because high net worth people are used to people telling them how great they are, right?
Mm.
You say, oh my gosh, you're just gonna be getting in line saying the same thing. Whereas if you let's just say like give them a little touch, hold eye contact for just like a little longer, right?
Mhm.
Maybe a second longer than normal. Those are all things that can kind of get in past the
Mm.
armor, right? Because high net worth always has a lot of armor on top of them.
Oh, who pays on the first date?
I usually like to have the guy pay in the first date,
Mm.
right? But sometimes some people get kind of cheap. Like I've noticed that too. I'm like, even like high net worth, I'm like, really? Like you're being, but so it doesn't have to be like a Michelin star restaurant on the first date, right? But
Mhm.
it should be something that's nice too, right? It could be, let's just say like a lunch, right?
Mm.
Or, it doesn't have to be a full on dinner. I get that. But like a lunch is nice, right? I do prefer for the guy to pay. If they really have issues, then take a really nice pastry shop or to a really nice
Mm.
place. That's something, not something too chintzy. Like forget Starbucks. Like definitely no to that.
Yeah.
No way. Like like
Chintzy.
a like a tasty patisserie place, something that's really famous for something, that makes it kind of fun.
And do you think like because a lot of times dinners are kind of like too heavy and like, tense?
Yeah, well, dinners are longer, right? You don't know,
Oh.
right? You could be stuck for like 2 hours with somebody that you think is so boring, right? That's not good for anybody. And I get that, right? So sometimes it could be, let's just have some appetizers and a drink, right? That could be fine at like a
Mm.
nice place, and that's fine too. But you don't want them to be too noisy. A nice, a place where you can actually hear and actually see each other is nice, But
Got it.
I should treat in some form
Mm.
or the other.
I agree.
I mean, not everybody feels that, but it should. It's just a nice gesture.
Ooh, how has being a matchmaker for millionaires or high net worth individuals changed your own views about relationships?
Oh, it changes my view in the sense that I realize that people are going to do what they want to do, right?
Mm.
I might have my ideals of what I push for, but at the end of the day, people would choose what they choose, and I don't judge, right?
Mm.
I do try to warn. I go, if this is what you really want, then that's fine. But these are some of the potential trade-offs. At least I feel that I've said what I've needed to say, right?
Mm.
Sometimes people, we're all in different stages of evolving. Sometimes we see things, sometimes we don't see things, and it's not my job to make people more evolved or less evolved or whatever it is, right? And my view is only one view, right? But yeah, I think sometimes with ultra high net worth, they have an idea of what they want, and that's
Mm.
that, and that's fine.
Mm.
And so part of my job is also to give them what they want, And sometimes I'll throw in an extra person. I'll say, give this person, I think you might like this person too. And sometimes they like that too, right? So it all works.
Wow. So has it ever happened where you throw in that extra person that ended up working out, something that they weren't
It hasn't.
expecting?
It has. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
There's also a trust that has to happen, right? They have to trust me that I have their best interests at heart, right? And I really do care about my clients. I really do want them to have long-lasting happiness. To me, that's
Yeah.
kind of important, right? I'm not, some people you just, throw them on a date and we're fine, we're done, right? But I really do want them to find somebody that's going to be with them, right? I'm not going into this with the goal just to match them up and get rid of them. No, my goal generally with each client is to find them somebody that's going to be their forever person, right? Because if they're happily married or happily partnered, they make great referrals, right? That's the whole goal.
Could you finish the sentence? If you want to date a high net worth, you better be ready to blank.
Adore them.
Oh, adore like love them or just
shower them with attention.
wow.
Well, because they're busy, right? They want somebody who travels when they want to travel. They have their interests. They want somebody to love their interests too. So you should adore them.
Got it. Is there any one last interesting or inspiring story you could share with us that could help us?
Yeah, at the end of the day, we are living in a very appearance conscious society, right? So taking care of one's looks and self is very, very important. It is so important that we know that, accept that, and realize that is a society that we're in. And don't fight it, because there's nothing wrong with looking good and taking care of yourself, right? It shows self-love, self-care as well, right? And that's the reality. That's the reality of the world that we live in.
So everybody likes when they meet and they like what they see.
Yeah, they like somebody who looks like they take care of themselves. And you don't have to be gorgeous, but you have to take care of yourself. Like you can't be sloppy, whatever. But people like that, especially in the ultra high net worth world, because sometimes you're in a somewhat public, people are looking at you, right? And you do have to look presentable.
So was there a date or a client where they showed up and they're like, oh, he showed up in sneakers or he smelled? Was that a real story?
Yeah. Sometimes these people don't know how to dress well. Sometimes they it's funny where I had one guy very well off, but his outfits just looked put together badly. Like every item was a designer item, very nice, but just not combined well, right? So I'm like, oh, but this is very expensive. This is Italian. I'm like, well, that's great, but it doesn't look good on you, right? And so I also work with stylists to help there, right? Because it's just not their strengths. Right? People, just because one is, let's just say, very successful in business doesn't mean that they're good at style, right? And that's fine. Yeah. But that's why you hire professionals. That's why you have somebody who helps you look put together, right? I know my area. I'm really good at relationships. That is my strength. Style and appearances and looks is not my strength. You look great. You always look so well put together and polished, right? That is your strength, right? And so let's just say if I had questions, I would come to you. Right. And just like if I had business questions, I would ask this business person. Right. So I think we all should understand that we all have our limitations and we should just go to the experts for what they're good at.
Got it. Yeah. I couldn't just imagine that guy in Gucci belt and it's too much flashy, maybe.
Well, and he had this really nice suit, but it didn't fit right. I'm like,
oh,
it just, and he's like, oh, this is very expensive. I go, yeah, I know, but it just doesn't look good. Or I have this other guy who's got one of the most amazing homes, won this big architectural prize. He walks around in this silly t-shirt and it looked bad. I'm like, you can do better, right? He's like, I don't like this. I go, but but anyway, I had a stylist do a closet refresh for him.
And did he get a successful date after that, after he changed his style?
It's funny. Right now it's still in process right now. I am hopeful. I think he's really happy right now. So we'll see how this one goes. I don't know. I don't want to jinx anything.
Got it. Woo.
I know, right?
We hit, I think, all the points, but if there's anything else you want to add, or we can wrap it up.
I may just end on a very hopeful note. And I think it's this, is that, when people really decide that they truly want to find love, right? And don't let things block them, they will find it. So I think it's don't give up, but you just do have to do it with focus and priority.
Energy-wise, or literally putting in the work as well.
Because, for example, people like, oh, I really want to find the one. Then I go, okay, I got a great date for you. Oh, I'm busy. I gotta lose 5 pounds. All these excuses, right? So I think people should always think about, in their own heart of hearts, are they really ready? That's the work that they have to do. right? The matchmaker can't fix that. But I do feel that if people are truly determined to like, okay, I really want to find somebody special and get married. I really want to do this. But they also have to prioritize it. Almost everybody ends up finding somebody. But you do have to truly prioritize it because at the end of the day, your most important relationship isn't with a guy or gal. It's really with yourself. Are you comfortable with it? Are you ready? Yeah.
Wow, I love that. And you see success in people who truly love themselves.
Yes. And go, okay, I'm going to make this happen. And then it eliminates all the blockers because we always like, oh, but I can't do this. I can't do that. Blah, blah, blah. There's no can'ts. And oh, I need to lose this, lose that. I need to do this. There's no, I need to. No. There's somebody out there. You just have to go out and see them.
Wow. Wait, I love that because intention is where you really get somewhere.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Honestly, Cassidy, you are, I think, one of the most amazing matchmakers I've ever talked to. And I wish you success and so many people should come to you and get that
Well, I love
clarity.
talking to people. They should just reach out to me. I'd love to. I honestly, I love meeting people. To me, it's the biggest joy for me is to meet new people and learn about them. And I loved meeting you. I love learning about your story and your journey. So much admiration for you and your determination and your grit and your success. And I wish you lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of success going forward.
Thank you so much. Well, if anyone wants to contact Cassindy, I will put all the details down below.
Please do. I love talking to you. I really, really do.
Thank you so much to Cassindy for joining today and hope you guys had as much fun as I did learning. If you guys want to hire a matchmaker or get in touch with Cassindy, I will leave all the information below. And let me know if you guys have ever fallen in love using a matchmaker. Thank you guys for watching and see you guys in my next episode.